All right, welcome back. This is Module 9B. We're continuing the theme of managing the new business. Going to be looking at some tools and techniques for managing the entrepreneurial effort. Again, some of this you may have seen from, hopefully seen from management courses, because management principles are management principles. They apply to small companies and medium-sized companies and large companies. But there are some that are more focused on smaller entrepreneurial efforts, and we're going to look at those. Our objectives: take a look at plans, what kind of plans are needed for a typical small business, a typical entrepreneurial effort. What kind of technology and tools are out there, and as I mentioned at the end of the last module, to look at negotiating, because you as the entrepreneur, you're going to be surprised how much negotiations go on in business. Well, a lot of the tools these days are software. In the read for this week, there's the article, the first article in the read for this week, The New Teamwork, and that article talks about the Xbox, Microsoft Xbox, and getting that to market using a global team. And yeah, that's a little bit bigger company, but I believe I may have mentioned this in a prior lecture. You can have a global team these days. Even a small company, one of the small businesses that actually started by one of the students in my entrepreneurial class a few years ago, was basically is three people, and he's here in the U.S. doing the marketing and getting the jobs, web designing business, creating websites. And he's here in the U.S. doing the marketing, getting the business. His graphics designer is in Sweden, and the third partner, who does the actual HTML coding and the actual implementation of the code for the website and maintenance of it, is in South Africa. Nothing wrong with that. It works. The other possibility, right now we're talking about building customization of products, building to order. Okay, it's fairly common. I didn't want to put too much supplemental reading into this week, but there are a number of articles that have been published in magazines like Business Week and things like that, of mass market of one. Okay, building things on demand. A number of companies that I have worked with and seen are taking advance orders. For example, they build hobby type items, model trains, model planes, model boats, these kinds of things, or collectibles. Well, if perhaps you have a number of variants on this thing, you don't know how many of each color to make. Should you make, if you have 6 different colors, do you make the same quantity of each of 6 colors, or is one going to sell more than another? Well, that's a problem. And the problem becomes a real problem when you sell out of one particular model, one particular color, and a quantity of the other color is sitting on the shelf gathering dust, because you may be just seeing your profit margin erode and disappear. So as a result, companies are using the web, using e-commerce orders to take advance orders. And what you do is you say, okay, I want it, this model in this color. And they say, all right, it'll ship, when we get a certain number of orders, we will, 25, 50, whatever. We'll produce it, and we expect it to be delivered in 90 days. And they typically ask for your credit card number, and it will be billed to your credit card when it ships. They do not bill you in advance. You can't do that. But again, there are ways of modifying the business model to incorporate a build to order. Many, many years ago, automobiles were built to order. Okay, back in the 50s and 60s and even into the 70s, you ordered a car, a brand new car. You didn't buy it off the lot. You ordered it with the options that you wanted and the colors that you wanted, and it took anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months to get that automobile. Most car manufacturers don't do that anymore. You tend to buy off the lot, or if you're looking for something, they will go look at other dealers to see who has it. So again, the models do change. But again, the idea of building to order or advance ordering or printing on demand is to cut the inventory, cut the wastage, and because both inventory, leftover inventory, and waste kill your profit margins. One of the things I suggest you look at is you can go to the NJIT library, and again, one of the assignments so far has talked about going to the library and finding stuff electronically through the electronic journals. Go to Business Week. Each year in November, they come out with an article called the Web Smart 50. And it talks about, gives little vignettes about the 50 smartest companies in terms of using web technology and other high-tech technology to increase their business, increase their competitiveness, and it changes every year. So keep up. Take a look at it. Well, collaboration. The article that I talked about that was in for read for this week, the new teamwork, is based on collaboration. I also have another article, supplemental reading, on collaboration. This has to do with the folks at Lego. All right, and how they use software. And it's vital because, again, you have some ideas, but other people have ideas. You need to communicate with more people because you don't have the resources within your own little company typically to do everything that has to be done. So you need to share with others and participate and make things happen. But it's important that you focus on doing it, on the institution, the processes, not the technology. Don't get lost in the go-to-meeting software or web meeting, net meeting software. Don't get lost in the technology. Make sure that it is useful, not just gee whiz. Understand that there are levels of information. Not everybody should have access to everything. Not everybody can be trusted to have access of everything. Again, if you look at magazines like Entrepreneur and Business Week, you'll find articles if you search them out. A lot of this was done as part of the New York area Homeland Security effort. The idea being that, again, not everybody needs access to everything. If there's an EMT call in Brooklyn, does the EMT organizations in Bergen County, New Jersey need to know about that? Not really. You regionalize it into regional domains. However, if it's a massive disaster or some kind of catastrophic problem, maybe those EMTs in Bergen County, New Jersey do need to know what the Brooklyn people know, and vice versa. So again, you have to share how you're going to plan this. Again, one of the concepts, and we talked about this in advertising, is push versus pull. Some information you want to push out to people, ads, like ads and things like that, and some you want to let them come in and get it at their convenience. This course is a push-pull. I send out announcements, I send out emails saying, hey, do this, do that, but in terms of looking at these and listening to these lectures and things like that, you subscribe, you come in when it's convenient for you. One of the concepts, again, applicable to general management, but it's also applicable to the entrepreneur, and you have to be aware of it, is that you have what I call, it's my idea, I call it managing the pipeline. Shows my engineering background. You have to measure everything. The issue is that if you are looking only at the right side of the chart over here and you are measuring only output, and in the sense of a business, output is typically measured in revenue or income, profit, okay? And if that's all you're looking at, and suddenly you see that the profits went down, the revenue went down, that's a problem. But where is the problem? When did it happen? Was the problem 2 weeks ago, back in the middle of the pipe, in the in-process portion, where maybe there wasn't enough supplies, maybe there wasn't enough inventory, maybe one production line went down, maybe a couple of people called in sick, and things didn't get done? Or maybe it was back at the left hand, the beginning end of the pipe. Maybe not 2 months ago, maybe 6 months ago. Not enough sales came in. Not enough proposals were sent out. Not enough telemarketing calls were made. Maybe you didn't get enough orders. How long is that pipe? I don't know. Depends upon the kind of business you're in. Some businesses have a very short pipe between the time that you get a new order or a new customer coming in, new client, new patient, and the time that they get processed, dealt with, fixed, whatever, they get their product and pay you. So that overall process may be a day, 2 days, a week, but in some businesses it could be 6 months to a year. You get an order for a major project and it takes a year to do it before you ship it to the customer and get paid. So again, if you are only looking at the right hand, the output end, and that pipe runs dry and the oil or water, their analogy, the flow stops, the problem might have been 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago. someplace in the middle of the pipe or someplace at the beginning of the pipe. You have to constantly measure the output, the in-process metrics, and of course, the sales efforts and number of sales calls and telephone calls and all that kind of good stuff that happens. Measure everything. Let's talk a little bit about plans. Different kinds of plans that a small business needs. Again, many times they're just smaller versions of what a big company would do. You need an operations plan, a marketing plan for each year, goals for the year. You need to look at a strategic plan every once in a while. Sit back, where are we going? I think I mentioned before, and again, we keep building upon these same themes. I believe when we talked about taxes, I said about getting people out of the office and having a company meeting, as ways of avoiding this double taxation. That was the context it was in, if you remember. Don't try and do this as part of your weekly meetings or while you're doing business. Once a year, or for a strategic plan, maybe you do it every 2 or 3 years as perhaps part of the annual meeting. Get your key people, or if it's a real small company, get everybody and go someplace for a weekend. Maybe shut the business down for a day or two if you can, or leave it, in the hands of some junior people who maybe just mind the store, as it were. But get them off-site. A couple of companies have used the term woods meetings. The government, look at, the Camp David meetings with the federal government, with the president. It's a place away. It's out of the day-to-day routine. Go to a nice place, maybe let them take their significant other with them or their family, but make sure there's some meeting as well as some R&R. You can do some R&R and some enjoyment and some personal networking and team building at these things, but you also want to spend some time actually sitting down and putting together the plans. The idea of doing it off-site and on, say, weekends or that, or a day without the business, is you want to be able to clear your mind, focus on the big picture, step away from the business, and come up with some new ideas. Innovation. The business is going to change constantly. You're going to have to keep reinventing the business to keep it viable. You should have seen this in other courses. The idea of what a plan consists of. Typically, an operation plan, you have a goal. You want to have the business operating by November of 2006. You can see how old this chart is. I've used it for a few years. Objectives are the measurable results to achieve that goal. Strategies are how we do it, action verbs, but again in terms of a general strategy. And then under that you have tactics, which is the detailed action plan. And make sure that the tactics have names and dates. Names and due dates for the tactics. The objectives typically will be milestones. Okay, that's another word for, or typically used as a synonym for objectives. It works. It works. And it's a good way to communicate with your own team. So plans have to be done. Okay, moving on. A couple of miscellaneous issues of management. Time management. Time is your most, you as the owner, entrepreneur, time is going to be your most critical resource. Trust me on this one. Not money. not skills, not technology. Time is going to be your most precious item. One of the little courses that is taught, it's a full day course taught by some consultants, is about taking the monkey on your back. Let me give you just a 2-minute nutshell of what that means, because it's important to a manager, particularly an entrepreneur. You're the boss. I'm one of your workers. You come down the hall and I say, hey, sir, ma'am, Sam, Susan, whatever, we have this problem. Mr. Smith of Smith Industries called. He's irate. The shipment that arrived, that he was waiting for, finally arrived this morning, and there's a problem with it, and he is just livid. Well, since you're a hands-on manager and entrepreneur, and this is your baby and this is your company, your first instinct is to say, okay, I'll call him and see what the problem is. Wrong thing. Why? Because as you walk down the hall, somebody else is going to come up with another problem. And if you do that, by the time you get to your office, you're going to have all these problems, all these monkeys on your back, weighing you down. And I, as the employee who transferred that monkey from my back to your back, what do I say? Well, wow, got rid of that one. I can go have a coffee break and chat with the folks in the lunchroom because the boss is going to take care of it. Not my problem now. I pushed it upstairs. Well, you as the boss can't let that happen. So, what do? You come back to me when I tell you Mr. Smith called, you should say, okay, call Mr. Smith back. Tell him that you talked with me and I asked you personally to call him. And get the details of what the problem is. What's wrong? Was the product bad? Was it just that it was late? Did it get damaged in transit? Find out what it is. Get back to me with an email right after the phone call, giving me a synopsis of what the problem is, what Mr. Smith would like to see as the solution, and what you recommend as the solution. And then we'll see where we go. You don't take the monkey. You give the monkey back to the employee and let them do it. Okay, also in terms of time management, there's stuff out there, there's software, Outlook, Act, a whole bunch of industry-specific applications that can help make your life easier, manage your calendar, manage your follow-ups, your contacts, keep track of your time if you're in a business such as an architect or an attorney or an accountant that bills, on a time basis. Lots of things there. Use it. Doesn't have to be complicated. Programs like Act and Outlook are very cheap, very easy to use. And you want to prioritize your time. And make sure that you leave some time to have a life. I mentioned earlier, there are lots of times in this Perfect Mess book. Keep your schedule flexible. Keep a folder of things to read or to fill in. Use a BlackBerry to check your email while you're sitting there waiting. Figure out, what if I don't do this today? Is it on the critical path? Is it absolutely necessary, or can it be put off till tomorrow? Prioritize things. And use the time that you have. I don't know about you, but where do you get some of your best ideas? I usually get them when I'm driving. Okay, I try not to use the cell phone much when I'm driving, and I don't like to give people my cell phone number for that reason. But while I'm driving along, sometimes I'll be thinking about things and I'll come up with ideas. So I always keep a pad and pen on the seat next to me so that I can just scribble myself a quick little 1 or 2 word reminder to do something or to make something happen, something like that. Again, you're not going to be able to find time or make time. You're going to have to use it and allocate it. Be careful of burnout. There's, again, another supplemental little piece. Just some tips for avoiding burnout, that you might find useful. Again, it comes out of Business Week. Another topic is knowledge management. There are courses on knowledge management here at NJIT as well as other places. That's the definition. Used to be said that we were drowning in data, starving for information. Well, we got more information now than we know what to do with, but we don't necessarily how to convert it into business intelligence, something that we can use and understand on how to better run our business. We have to be able to capture our experience, capture what we did right, what we did wrong, and use it so that the next time we do it right instead of wrong. What does this mean? If HP knew what HP knows, it's just it's a problem that every big company has. What if, there are so many different things going on in different places, and there's no way to gather all that together and make sense out of it. On a small company, you're a little bit better, but don't forget that even though, and you may say this doesn't apply to an entrepreneurial company, but the answer is yes, it does. Yes, it does. Your team is bigger than you think. Again, going back to, the organization part that I talked about earlier, you're going to be dealing with external people as well as people within your own little company, even if they're all in one small room or one building as opposed to spread around the globe. You're going to be dealing with outsiders, accountants, lawyers, bankers, suppliers. So you're going to have to be aware of what's going on and try to synthesize that information into something that's useful. If you rely a lot on transportation to get your product from where it is into the customer's hands, you had better be aware of what the trends are in the shipping industries and what the trends are in things as mundane as gasoline. Gasoline and diesel fuel may drastically affect your costs. So you have to be on top of a lot of information and convert it into usable knowledge. From a small business standpoint, sometimes you start simply by building a database, set of templates. Did we do a job like this before? Do we have a set of specs for it? Do we have a sample? Did somebody ask this kind of question before? I try, in my practice, not law practice and in business practice, to not reinvent the wheel. Okay? So I have a database of employment contracts, non-competition agreements, non-disclosure agreements, um, recording contracts, things like that. And I keep a database. I use an application-specific piece of software that integrates this stuff, uh, so it makes it easy to find. It can be something as simple again as ACT or Goldmine or even Outlook, but you need it. You need that information. But be careful, particularly as your company starts to grow, that their knowledge management is not easy. People don't like to document, so you kind of have to, if you've delegated this and your employees are helping to build this set of knowledge, this knowledge database, that they have an incentive to do so. And a lot of times there is a disincentive because the person says, hey, if I keep all this stuff up in my head, they can't get rid of me. If I document everything that I know, they can fire me tomorrow. That's a problem. It's not an easy answer, but you have to encourage it. Okay. I mentioned we're going to talk about negotiating, so we're going to spend the next 10 minutes or so on negotiating. There are 3 textbooks out there, kind of Bibles of negotiating. Herb Cohen was a protege of Jerry Nierenberg. I had the pleasure of studying under both Mr. Nierenberg and Mr. Cohen in their seminars. Mr. Nierenberg has since passed away, but they run week-long classes, seminars in how to negotiate, and they focus on different industries and different problems and those kinds of things. Getting to Yes by Fisher and Urey. Fisher and Urey are professors on the West Coast. Again, very, very good book. They're all available in paperback. I believe all 3 are available at the NJIT library. So if you're interested in negotiating and learning more about negotiating, I recommend that reading. But let's go through it so that you understand what we're dealing with. The idea is that you need information. You have to prepare. Look at it from their side. Walk a mile in their moccasins was an old saying. Okay? Put yourself in their shoes. What's going to be their strategy? Look at body language. Try and read the other person's mind. It's a game. It's a strategy session. Sometimes you plant a seed and give them an idea. You say, well, gee, how about this? How about this approach? And the answer may be, that's ridiculous. We've never done that before. That wouldn't work. Why should we? Okay. You let it go. Maybe you come back and revisit it later. Maybe you let them bring it up. Let them think it's their idea. They say, the thought of doing it this way could be an idea. Help me works well. Look, you and I want to do business together. I want your business. You want our product. We're a good fit for each other. It's a great solution. But we just, can't seem to get together to make this deal happen. Help me understand what the problem is. I don't understand why we have this impasse. I'm just not. I'm sorry, I don't see it. Help me. It works. Grovel if you have to. Again, don't have a big ego. Egos get in the way. Also watch deadlines. Time is power. Be flexible. Hey, we could solve this today, or we can think about it, go do some more research, find out some answers, and come back next week. We don't have to solve it today. Why do you think that unions and management, particularly in the government arena, subways, buses, those kinds of things, why do you think they wait till the last day to sit down for meaningful negotiations? Because they know there's a tight deadline. The subways are going to come in New York are going to come to a screeching halt at midnight tomorrow night, 1 minute after midnight tomorrow night, unless something is done. Pressure. If you want to be in the winning position, you got to be able to say, hey, I can deal with this. We can get there today. We can get there tomorrow. And sometimes you can find out the other person's deadline. An example was there was a group in from Japan negotiating with this American company, and it was tough negotiations, and they weren't getting too far, and they weren't sure. And the secretary for one of the American managers came in to the meeting and called him out for a second, and she said, the Japanese gentlemen that were in the meeting, their limo service has called and said they will be here at 5:30 p.m. to pick them up in order to get them back to the airport to make their flight back to Japan. Suddenly, we knew what the other side's deadline was. This thing had to be done by 5:30 or they were leaving. So they couldn't procrastinate too long. So negotiations suddenly got real serious about 5 o'clock. Okay? To put the pressure on, because they knew they had 30 minutes to get it done. It works. It works. When you're negotiating, you have to come up with a position. What's your position on this matter? Is this is a standard form? Hey, this contract, this deal, this is our standard form. Everybody signs it. I mean, we've been using this for years. Or is this we've never done this before. This is not company policy. Man, I don't know. This is I don't know whether my lawyers would approve this. I don't know. It's never been done. How much competition have you got? Are you the only game in town, or is the next guy outside in the hallway waiting to come in and make a deal? Are you a risk taker? Is the other side a risk taker, or are they conservative? You have to figure that out. How much has been invested? How much time, energy, and money has been spent so far getting to where we are on this deal? Does the other side need to make this thing work? Is it critical to them? Do you need to make it work? If you don't get this job, if you don't win this project, this bid, are you out of business? Or should you walk away? But you always need, and this is a term that's used in all three of the books that I mentioned, a BATNA, B-A-T-N-A. And it says, best alternative to negotiated agreement. If all else fails, can you walk away? Or at least make them think you will. Look, I want to do business with you more than anything else in the world, but I can't afford to put my company out of business just to make a deal with you. Love to do it, but I can't. Have to be willing to walk away. And you have to understand what your best alternative is. Now, many times in terms of legal issues, many things go to mediation. Many commercial disputes, business disputes, these days go to mediation, which is negotiation. We'll talk about mediation in a moment. Looking to negotiate a settlement, compromise, an agreement. The best alternative to that, or the BATNA in many of those cases, is that if you don't reach a settlement, don't reach an agreement, you go in front of a judge and or a jury, and they make a decision. So, and you weigh your chances of winning or losing, in court, and all the expense and time that involves. But again, that may be your best alternative. So whether you're willing to accept that alternative or not influences how weak or strong you can be in terms of a negotiating position, whether or not you should bend. And you have to look at it again from their side and make sure that you try to figure out what is their best alternative to a negotiated agreement. In terms of strategies for negotiating, the textbook, I believe the textbook we're using uses cooperative. Most of the texts use collaborative negotiations, a win-win. Help me. Both sides have to honor the deal. You don't want a win-lose because the loser will back out. Has to be something in both. Particularly if you're going to have an ongoing deal. If it's a one-shot deal, maybe you can get away with tough demands and sticking it to the other side. But if you expect to have an ongoing business relationship with this other side, the other company, or it could be an employee even that you're negotiating with, you have to have a trust a relationship and a willingness to honor the deal. I think we talked about the construction industry and some scenarios in prior lectures. And again, this is an example. If you negotiate, if you're the general contractor and you negotiate too tough a deal with your subcontractors, what is that? How is that subcontractor going to try to get even or get well? Companies talk about get well plans. Okay, how will that company try to get well? Well, subcontractor put in the second string. I believe I gave a scenario, but I'll do it again. Electrical subcontractor to a GC. GC says, look, want you on the job, but we can't win this job with you bidding $800,000 for the electrical. You got $400K, take it or leave it. Maybe you need the business, so you take it. So what do? You don't put your best people on it. You put some junior people on it. Maybe you buy substandard or second-rate electrical fixtures, lighter wiring than perhaps you should have. Cut corners here and there. What happens? Parking garages fall down in Atlantic City at the Tropicana, because of shoddy concrete. A subcontractor trying to get well, trying to make up the margin that he was pushed out of, cheated out of. So you got to be careful. And again, you want a collaborative, you want a win-win situation. Some of the tactics that you get there with are things like it's called the vague carrot tactic, and very simply, that is what I tell you is, hey, look, I need you to bid. You're the subcontractor. I need you to bid real low on this. We got to win this job at NJIT, but if we bid low, we're not going to make much money on this one. But there's other business in the pipeline. Man, there are other jobs coming down, and we can really, really capitalize on it. But it's very vague. What's the counter tactic that you should employ? Okay, all right. So if I don't make any money on this job, there are other jobs. Can you show me a list? Can you give me some specifics as to what jobs they're going to be sending out for bid and when? Some details. It need something, a little meat on it. Another tactic is what's called the nibble or salami slice negotiating tactic. Unions are famous for that. Deal with one issue at a time. First we talk about maternity leave, then we talk about bereavement leave, then we talk about hospital benefits, then we talk about dental benefits, then we talk about this, then we talk about that, and finally we get to the raises. And what you do is you take it one little piece at a time until you get what you want. Well, the counter tactic is, at some point, you say, wait a minute. All you've been doing is one thing after another, and you keep building and building, and this thing is just so heavy and so big now that it's collapsing in on us, and you're going to put us out of business. We can't do this. The deal is off. It's not over until it's over. Nothing's on the table at this point, or everything is back on the table. Renegotiate. And of course it works the other way around. The one who's saying all or nothing you can nibble at. Anger in a competitive situation. Some people do get angry, which is stupid. What you do is dump it. Let them dump. That should be let them, not let the dump, but let them dump. And then paraphrase it. Say, well, and acknowledge it. I understand. I understand your concern and your problem here, but if you look at it from our side, I mean, we really can't live on the money that you're paying us. I understand that the business is down, but wow, that's a problem. It can work. You also have to be careful that, just as an aside, again, I mentioned don't be arrogant, don't let your ego get in the way. There's an example. I don't know if you ever heard of Rubbermaid. Rubbermaid. They make plastic containers besides rubber products, but Rubbermaid was in the 1990s. Rubbermaid had a virtual monopoly on small food storage containers, in the supermarkets, and they were the name. And in the mid-90s, the price of rosin, the raw material that makes this stuff, doubled. In a short period of time. Rubbermaid's reaction was to pass the price increases directly on to the customers, and the customers didn't like that, particularly companies like Walmart. Said, hey, you got to feel some of the pain here too. We can't pass all this on to the consumers and have them pay higher prices. Unfortunately, Rubbermaid hung tough, had a big ego, and said, "Nope, nope. We're not cutting our margins. We're not reducing our profits. Pass it on." Well, what happened? Ankle biters came in, as they're known. Other companies came into the space. And Walmart, amongst others, went out to these competitors. And Rubbermaid lost a major portion of its market share. They let their ego, they let their thick-headedness get in the way, and it came back and hurt them. Be flexible. Be aware of what's going on. Okay. Last variant or aspect of negotiating is in terms of two terms, mediation and arbitration. Very prevalent in a business environment. Most business contracts these days prefer to have a mediation or arbitration clause in there as opposed to people going to court and spending lots and lots of money going through the court system. The idea of a mediation is that this third-party mediator helps you reach a compromise, negotiates a compromise that's acceptable. Arbitration, on the other hand, is more like a judge. Again, this third party, typically not a judge, but somebody, either an attorney or a consultant who's familiar with the industry and licensed as an arbitrator, hears both sides and makes a decision. The people don't have to agree. Comes down and that person, he or she, the arbitrator, says, "Okay, I heard everybody, and this is what I decide. You win, they lose." Either mediation or arbitration could be binding or non-binding. If you agree to binding arbitration, you have agreed that you will accept that arbitrator's solution, whether it's for you or against you. If it's non-binding, you can walk out or reject that decision or the mediation. Mediation is usually non-binding. Binding mediation really only is involved where, for instance, the subways, where they say, "Look, we will agree to continue to meet non-stop until we reach a solution." But that's fairly rare. Okay, that covers this week's topics. Next week we will talk about international business. There are lots of courses available on international, and that is not my specific expertise, but we will look at it briefly from the entrepreneurial effort of taking something international, importing and exporting, free trade zones, which are important to entrepreneurs, and of course the general question of outsourcing, both from a global, on a global basis or even on a local basis. So again, make sure you keep up with the stuff, and we'll see you next week.